The city of Seattle is now one vote away from being awarded the 32nd NHL franchise. We'll discuss all the latest updates coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, the city of Seattle is now one step closer and one vote away from being awarded the 32nd NHL franchise. Yesterday, on October the 2nd, they had a very good and productive meeting with the NHL's Executive Committee. In case you're not familiar with how that all works, the NHL is run on a board of governors, and within that board of governors, they're broken up into different committees. So a lot of times the committees will meet with different groups, and then they take their findings and their information and recommendations to the entire board for further discussion and approval. So this meeting between the group from Seattle and the NHL's Executive Committee was held right before a regular NHL board meeting. So afterwards, later in the day, we did find out that the Executive Committee did put forth a recommendation to the full board of governors for the Seattle to be granted their 32nd NHL franchise. So now the NHL Board of Governors are expected to vote on this in an upcoming meeting around December 3rd or 4th. So that's likely when we find out the decision on the Seattle application. Of course, it's fully expected to come back with a full approval here. Now they need a 75% vote for yes to grant the franchise in order to proceed here. So they need a 3/4 majority vote in order to get the franchise awarded. Based on all the information we know, it does not look like that's going to be an issue. So likely in early December, Seattle is granted the 32nd NHL franchise. Now, of course, as we know, the city of Seattle is pretty hungry for professional sports again. Not only are they trying to get an NHL team, but they are eager to bring back the NBA as well. They have an NBA preseason game coming up here in a few days. We've seen comments from the NBA commissioner as well as some players, including Kevin Durant, who started his career in Seattle before the team moved, that they really need to bring back professional sports, basketball, hockey, etc. to that area. It's certainly a very big market, and I do think professional sports like hockey and basketball will thrive in that area for sure. There's a long history of it there, and I think they're due to get back some NHL and NBA teams. There is a few other things that we learned yesterday as well from the meetings and comments from Commissioner Gary Bettman. So should the NHL grant the franchise to Seattle as expected, both sides are hoping to launch the team for 2020-2021 season. But of course, Gary Bettman did indicate that obviously until the arena is further along, it's hard to confirm that, and that they are potentially prepared for a 2021 debut. Of course, the other potential issue here that Gary Bettman likely isn't going to comment on is a potential work stoppage in the NHL. As of right now, the current CBA between the NHLPA and the NHL owners is set to expire in 2022. However, both the NHL and the NHLPA have an option in September of 2019 to vote to opt out of the current CBA and end it early, which would then cause it to expire after the 2019-20 season. So obviously launching a new franchise in 2020 could potentially be problematic if they opt out and a new CBA is not in place in time. I'm sure the NHL is not going to want to be in a situation where they're getting ready to launch a brand new franchise and have a potential work stoppage. So I guess depending on how things are looking, that could potentially delay the city of Seattle to 2021. Or at the same time, it could certainly give the players more leverage to work with the owners here and maybe get some of the things they want in the next CBA in order to make sure that it's ratified and ready to go here ahead of schedule. The NHL and all the owners are going to want their share of the pie, which is going to be the $650 million expansion fee paid by the Seattle group. So there's certainly going to be some leverage and some CBA negotiations kind of involved around this as well. This isn't going to be the only big topic going into the next CBA negotiations. There will be other things as well that players are looking for. Like another big one would be Olympic participation. I'm sure there's a fair bit of players that would like to see that happen again, as well as some other things like the amount of money that goes into escrow, etc. But either way, this franchise could potentially either be affected by a work stoppage or maybe help prevent one. Either way, the city of Seattle more likely gets awarded their NHL franchise in early December around the 3rd or the 4th. Now, the other thing that we also learned here as well, which shouldn't come as a surprise, is that should everything go down as planned here, the Vegas Golden Knights will not be participating in the expansion draft. So should this franchise be awarded during the next expansion draft to give players to the Seattle group, the Vegas Golden Knights will not be participating. That also means that they will not get a piece of the pie for the $650 million. A big chunk of that money split up amongst all the teams, and Vegas would not receive a cut in that money. Now, I know I've seen some comments online already after these stories broke yesterday indicating that Vegas was getting favorable treatment and whatnot. That's really not the case, and would like to put an end to that speculation now. This is pretty common if you look at other expansion eras in the NHL. When we've had a couple teams come in and then a few more, it is common that the most recent teams did not have to lose a player. So this is not anything new for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is something that we've seen in the NHL in the past, so it's pretty common. So the other 30 teams will go through the expansion process just like they did with the Vegas franchise coming into the NHL, and nothing about the situation here when it comes to the expansion draft will really be any different. I would expect the rules on around who they're allowed to protect to be very similar. I know we've heard comments in the past, nothing new on that right now, but they're expected to give very similar rules to Seattle as Vegas. Obviously, when you're paying that kind of money, you do expect to get access to some pretty decent players here. So overall, a very good and productive day for the Seattle group, making steps forward to land that 32nd franchise. Now, the other big thing here that we need to discuss here at some point is potential NHL realignment. Having Seattle come into the NHL would certainly even out the conferences. It would add a 16th team to the West and make it 16 in each conference, so that part is good. It would make the most sense for Seattle to go into the Pacific Division given their geographic location, but obviously that would throw the divisions in the Western Conference out of whack as well. So there would have to be some realignment taking place. Now, I've seen some people say the obvious choice here is to send Arizona to the Central. If you look at the geographic locations, I suppose in a way that does make a lot of sense. The only issue with that is that for the first time ever, we kind of see Arizona kind of developing a rivalry here with Vegas. Obviously, they're very close in proximity, and they're really not that far from the California teams as well. So it's not necessarily the perfect solution. In some senses it is, but in other ways it's not. As we know, the NHL is real big on rivalries these days. It certainly does help engage fans. It's good for TV ratings. There's a lot of good benefits from having a lot of rivalries around, and having a newer team like Vegas and a team like Arizona that struggled kind of develop a rivalry, have like the Battle of the Desert or whatever you want to call it, certainly is good for business. So it's not necessarily the perfect solution. I know I've also seen some people say, well, Arizona will move to Houston and that'll solve it. And if that happened, that would solve it as well. Obviously, the Coyotes do have some other, arena issues and things they need to work through before we can really say for sure that they're, stable long-term in the state of Arizona. So obviously, if that were to happen, then that would kind of change things here. And one last idea here for NHL realignment that I'd love to get your thoughts on as well. And we'll probably discuss this further in a future video with a little bit more detail. But I did see an idea online here discussing the possibility of taking Edmonton and Calgary and moving them into the Central Division, and then having Colorado move over to the Pacific along with the new Seattle team and kind of even things out that way. So just quickly, I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And then from there, I will be putting together an NHL realignment idea video here sometime in the next probably few weeks or so to kind of get some thoughts going on how the NHL could go about that. But I just want to get your quick thoughts for now as I do some research on what I think might be the best way for the NHL to go about realigning the teams. So overall, it's some great news for the city of Seattle, and we'll have further updates here as we get closer to the vote in December. Now, if you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.